Hello, welcome back. I never really know how to start these episodes, but I'm saying hello because that makes sense. I hope you're doing well. Maybe you're out for a run, maybe you're in the gym, whatever you're doing, lock in. Enjoy it. I've got a really exciting one for you today. I've got a new one, a new style. We're bringing Josh Lynott on. Josh Lynott is a writer, he's a poet, he's a photographer, and a runner. He's an ultramarathon runner, but I really think that Josh approaches all of this stuff uniquely. He brings creativity into the running game. I love what he does, I love what he's about. We talk about all things creativity, self-expression, authenticity, online hate, how women get it worse, many other things. I hope you enjoy it. I certainly did. He's calling in from Japan in this episode. The line was a little bit delayed at times, but I think we made it work. But I hope you enjoy it. This is Josh Lynott on what will be a recurring episode. I'm actually worried you can hear my Chemex just dripping in the background.
I can hear a little trickle.
If you're listening, that is me making coffee desperately. Cool.
Good
well,
morning.
Josh, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Good evening for you.
Thanks. Yeah, been waiting all day for this.
I know, and actually we have tried to make this happen a couple of times, and we finally got here. The first time was completely my fault. I just was really tired on a Sunday evening. I don't really know why I agreed to do a podcast at like 9 p.m. on a Sunday, but it got to it, and I just had to be honest.
I'm making that out myself. I keep doing the same thing. I'm like, I can do a call at 9 p.m. and then it gets to 9 p.m. I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, when you're in like work mode, you just agree to anything and everything, don't you? You're just like, yeah, I can totally do that. Put it in the calendar. Yeah, a bit stupid. My girlfriend Lou was laughing at me for even trying to do that sort of time. But what I did appreciate, what I did really like is, I guess I really felt like we both could be quite honest with each other about when we had fucked up a little bit. And
I've enjoyed that from the very beginning of getting to know you. You're just like, dude, I'm tired. I'm just like, thanks. Like, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the quest for quality as well.
I couldn't agree more. I think you have to be your best self, especially when you're doing something like a podcast. There's nothing quite like being recorded for an hour.
Yeah, especially when you're tired. No one wants to hear that. Dude, how's your week been so far?
I wanted to... Yeah, good. It's been good. I just launched my coaching hub this week, so I'm a bit I'm a little bit like wide-eyed and both excited and worried about how it's received, because it's the version 1. It's just got a few bits in there, so but it's exciting. Congrats. I've been working on it for a long time and sort of ready to just get it out there.
Dude, the world needs it.
No, I appreciate that. How's your week been?
My week's been great. I think I could probably say the best week of this year so far. And I've wanted to come to Japan for a long time. So that's where I'm taking this podcast from. I've never skied before, and this week I've skied 4 days in a row. Or at least in the last rolling 7 days, I did 4 days in a row of skiing, which beat my quads up more than any downhill race. So it felt like when I first got into trail running in Spain and Switzerland, and they just had super long downhills. That's what skiing has felt like on my quads. But
how are your shins? I remember skiing for the first time and just having boots that just wrecked the front of my shins.
I've been good on that front, but I think
nice.
That could be a bad habit of mine, that I need to put more pressure on my shins.
Yeah, well, I think it was just the boots or something. I don't know what was going on, but I remember skiing for the first time, and I took to it quite well, so I was able to sort of ski all day long. But my body was not ready for it, and I was just sort of grimacing the whole time. And it got to a point where I was sort of enjoying it because there were views and I was like, this is sick. I'm skiing. And I never skied as a kid because my family could never afford to take us skiing. Big family. And I was like, I can't believe I'm skiing, yes. But then my shins were just wrecked. So I was like, this actually sucks in a way.
Yeah, I took a rest day today off skiing because I was like, I want to keep enjoying this and I want to love these views, but I'm just like, my head's not in it because my body's just so beat up.
Yeah, fair enough. So, Josh, I want to ask, man. I want to ask. It's quite difficult to sort of describe exactly what you do and who you are. So let's say you're at a party and someone comes up to you and says, hey, introduces themselves and then, asks the typical, what do you do? Question. What do you say to that? What do you do?
At the moment, it changes every time. But the most common response in the bell curve is I'd say I'm a photographer and a writer and I run a lot. And then I would get a pretty standard response like, okay, like what do you photograph or what distance do you run? And I would then say like, at the moment I'm into trail running. My favorite distance is between 50 to 80 Ks, but all in all, my world revolves around running in every kind of touch point. I photograph it, I write about it, I host retreats, I race. All my opportunity comes from running. So that's kind of the overview that I'll give people, but I don't really have a succinct sentence of this is what I do.
Yeah. And I was drawn to your content from your poetry. And you've got a collection of poems, 42.2 poems, which I need to ask you about the point 2, called A Note to the Runners. What is the point 2? How do you have point 2 of a poem?
There's 42 full poems, and I really challenged the publisher on the point 2 because they're like, this is unconventional, you can't have point 2. And I was like, I don't care, I'm paying for this book. We'll have 42.2 poems. But yeah, the 42.2 poem all it says is now it's time for you to write your own. And it's kind of just this open-ended question to the reader to be like, okay, you've read my body of work, but now it's time to write what's true to you. And so that's the last bit of the race or the marathon or this anthology is write your own poem.
A bit of a call to action.
Yeah.
I love it.
So,
I've
never really disclosed
I was also
that.
Drawn to your... Really? No. There we go.
It's always go
Was
and
that
buy
supposed
the
to be
book
the
and
teaser?
Yeah, it's go and find out for yourself what it is.
Do you want me to cut this out?
No, it's okay.
I am really excited to tell you what I'm about to tell you. That's Runnable's coaching hub is finally live. I've been working pretty hard to put together the first course in there. The course is called Getting to Know Your Body, and it really lays the foundation for the philosophy of training that will be in the coaching hub. There's also a PDF in there that I started writing 18 months ago, would you believe it, called The 5 Principles of Running Sustainably. If you're looking for a standard running coach, someone to give you a plan, help you get faster, tick off a race, chase a goal that looks good on paper, I'm not that. Never have been, never want to be. Because most people don't need another spreadsheet. They need to fall in love with movement. The running world is loud right now, full of noise, full of numbers, expectations. Everywhere you look, it's more about miles, faster times, tougher goals, but no one's asking why. No one's asking how you actually feel, why you keep ending up injured, why you hate the process, why you only feel good enough when you're getting better. There's an epidemic of disconnection from your body, from nature, from joy. Running, the thing that's supposed to bring you back to yourself, has become another way to prove yourself. I don't want that for you. What we do at That's Runnable is different. I'm not here to make you reliant on me. I'm here to help you remember how to listen to your body, to trust it, to understand what it's asking for, to build your own training with clarity and intention, to feel strong, mobile, grounded, and confident in how you move, on the trails, in the gym, and in life. This is coaching that helps you come home to yourself, to your instincts, to your environment, to the real reasons you run. Because it's not just about getting fitter. It's about creating something sustainable, something real, and finally feeling at home in your body. And the byproduct of that process, you become a better runner. But most importantly, you improve your relationship with running and with yourself. So if you're interested in That's Runnable's coaching hub at all, go to that'srunnable.com/coaching-hub to find out more. I'm super excited about this next chapter for That's Runnable, and I hope you can join me for the ride. Well, I think that segues nicely into like some of the stuff that I have been drawn to in your other content. I think you speak so eloquently, you write so eloquently about a personal journey or a personal relationship with running. And, you know, I think there's a lot of running content out there, of course. There's a lot of noise out there. And the way you stand out to me is that you come into running from a creative perspective. You really, in my eyes, you're a creator first who runs and is maybe a bit obsessed with running. How do you kind of think about that? How do you think about the industry at large? And do you think that there's maybe a bit of a kind of gap, I guess, in the industry for people actually expressing themselves as individuals in unique ways in the running space?
Yeah, so that's so layered, that whole question. I guess firstly, like, I started running when I was 17, so I've been running for 12 years now. And I guess when I started and when maybe a lot of people started prior to the last like 4 to 5 years, it was just like you'd go out in super short shorts and it's kind of everyone's like pretty skinny and pretty geeky, and you just did it because it made you feel good, you loved it, and you just wanted to like push pretty hard. And then obviously there's been this like massive uptake of running, which is the best thing ever, because it's really probably why you and I are on a conversation right now. But where I guess my voice grew from, at least in the last year, it initially kind of stemmed from this like point of frustration, because I was just like, there's so much I see on Instagram. I'm like, do you actually love running? Like, I love it for this like freedom and this exploration and this like purity, and I feel like social media really kind of tainted running in a way. It's like, and this is probably just me being like overly judgmental, but I was like, I feel like people are running for the wrong reasons. But rather than just like say that, I was like, well, and prior to running, I've like always written. Like, I have always had journals since I was a kid. I loved writing. I have then been a travel blogger. So like writing has always been in my life before running. So when you say like, I see you as a creator first, I was a writer and a photographer before I was a runner. And yeah, this writing piece for me has always just been like, how do I do something that is like thought-provoking for people? So I was like, well, I'm just going to question people and be like, what do you actually love about this? Like, and it's okay for you to say that you love the social admiration, you love the trend, you love the fashion, you love everything else that isn't running, but I just want you to say it rather than just be like, I love running, when it's like not really running that you love. And then the next, as people kind of like go through this questioning, be like, maybe I do love this movement. I do love what it gives to me, and but I really want people to enjoy running more than what it is portrayed on socials as this like hype. Go fast, hit these times, like wear carbon, like all of that classic stuff that you see on trending reels. It's like running's got so much more depth to it than that. So yeah, my creation kind of stemmed from frustration, but also out of curiosity, and because I just freaking love running, and I'm so grateful what it's done for me.
Yeah, I think I'm the same in that sense. You know, when you fully and truly understand the power of running, or if you experience it yourself, if you have an experience with running, a relationship with running that is powerful and, dare I say, life-changing, you want people to experience it in the same way, or at least have access to what you've experienced. And then when you see everything else just not hitting the nail on the head, just it's not quite what your experience of running has been, or it's the antithesis of what you like about running, then you want to sort of express what your own relationship with it. You want to express what experience you've had with this amazing thing, because you want other people to experience it. And for me, I know that for myself anyway, as like a little indie kid, anything that's popular or anything that's popping or hype, I walk away from. If there are trends, if there are things that everyone's doing, I don't really want to do it. And I would hate for running to be something, even for those who aren't like contrarians or wanting to be different, I would hate for even the kind of public characteristics of running based on what's on social media and all that stuff. I would hate that to put people off trying it. I'd hate it to put people off even the idea of it, or for people to have a certain idea of what running is based on the populace, the kind of most commonly seen narratives, or dress codes and all that sort of stuff. So I think in some ways, like I find it really refreshing to see someone like you actually express yourself as an individual and your own relationship with it, and actually communicate in a way that is different from everyone else.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? It's like, how true what I put out, how close can I get to what I actually think and feel in my head? And I feel like the closer I bridge that gap, the better. But that's the same for any artist. It's like every artist has a picture in their head, and then they have the object that they create, and they say that the best artist is when those two are like as aligned as possible. And I try and do that with my words, I suppose. It's like what I actually feel when I'm running. How do I most accurately give that to the world through the medium of... Do
you have like a certain process for your writing?
Not really. It's like I try to put it down as quickly as it comes up, because I find that every time I think that I'll remember something, I never do. So I'll often just write, and
I'm the same
when the inspiration hits. But like I carry a notepad with me everywhere, and then I think that often helps. And then I don't know whether it's like chicken and the egg. It's like I write every day because I post every day, and as a result of that, I've just like developed this writing habit that I'm still going to write even if I'm not posting. But I think they both kind of like lift each other up. At the moment, I want to be posting frequently, so I'm writing a lot. And then we could probably go into like different tangents of what it is to like produce and to create good quality work. But I've always had this mentality around creating, whether it's taking photos or writing, that I'm just like, dude, just make a lot of it. And same as running, right? It's like, if you want to get good, you just have to be patient and run a lot over a long period of time. So I'm just like, I will just write a lot and share a lot, and then I guess the feedback of the public and my own iteration, hopefully I improve.
Yeah, I think we definitely have the same mentality on that front when it comes to shipping. I always say to people, if someone comes to me about, I don't know, social media content or anything, to be honest, in that sense, I just say rule one is just ship it. Just ship it. And I've really, over the last 4 years since starting social media and shipping content, I've just really got into the habit of just press and go, press and post, just whatever it is. Do you know what? I'm spending too much time on the finer details of this. It might not feel like it's there. I'm just going to throw it out there. And I've always been someone who really thinks perfection is, the obstacle to progress, and
100%. It's a massive hindrance, right?
The more you're just chasing, the more you're just chasing perfection, the slower you go. And I mean, this is the same. It's funny, when I was sort of doing some filming for the Coaching Hub, like a welcome video, like a sort of intro welcome video. I had this idea of what it could look like in my head, and it's like in the mountains. I wanted it to be like in a cool place, and I wanted every shot to be slightly different. And then I wanted, maybe I wanted a scene where I was back in London, but it seems, seamless. And I had these ideas. And as I was filming it, my girlfriend Lou was doing the filming, kindly doing the filming for me. And
what a champion.
Sometimes, yes, absolute champ. And dealing with my impatience with myself and, getting lines wrong and stuff. And I think she has more of a mentality of like redoing something and getting the perfect kind of tonality on a certain line or something like that. Whereas I would just be like, yeah, that's fine. That'll do. We'll move on. We'll get it done. And I think we are just different in that sense. Some people do want to, get it right. And there's definitely some value in the finer details. Some people.
I sometimes wonder what it would be like if I was one of those people.
Yeah.
Like, would I be like further ahead if I actually put in more attention to detail, or who knows?
Who knows? I think I am pretty scatty sometimes, not very focused all the time. And if I find myself trying to be like a perfectionist with something because of my lack of ability to focus, I just take too long on things. And so actually my way to progress, my way to kind of tick boxes and get stuff done is to get rid of the idea of perfection and just kind of be happy with imperfection and just ship it and just say, yeah, that's fine. Like even to the extent of, when I worked, even now, but like, when I was writing emails, all I was doing all day was writing emails. I think when I started my career, I'd be trying to craft the perfect phrasing in my email as a young 20-year-old in sales. And then eventually, after years of doing it, you realize that none of that actually matters. You just press send, just send it out. Just send it out.
Yeah.
If the tone's slightly wrong, whatever, you can sort of fix any damage to the relationship from a word that's misplaced or whatever. Just ship it.
It's funny because now I'm just trying to get shorter and shorter on emails. Like, I was messaging this brand the other day and talking to their founder, and his replies were just like, he's like, okay, sweet, thanks, email, like just email me. And it was so short. And then I was like talking to a friend about it, and he's like, yeah, that's what I strive to be. That level of just like, I can't remember the word that he used, but like, it wasn't succinct, but it was just like, well, I think maybe it was brevity, but just, so short. I was like, yeah, okay. Doesn't really matter, does it? Just get your point across.
It doesn't. I mean, some people can get offended. I've definitely dealt with people who are like that. Yeah. And I've been back and forth on emails with someone, and they're like being really short, and you're just like, oh, come on, like, be a little bit nicer. And then you get on a call with them, and they're the nicest person ever. And they may even say, sorry about my emailing. I was like, I was just rushing. I was just doing it on my phone. And then you're like, yeah, of course you were. I'm privileged that you were even replying. Like, I'm reading way too much into this and thinking too much about how I'm coming across, what he thinks of me. That it's like, he's got his life to live.
They couldn't care less. They're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, dude, let's go. I'm ready when you are.
Yeah. You know what actually used to still grinds my gears when people start an email with "I hope this finds you well." I'm like, are you serious? It's like that's like emails are brand new. That's like your first email ever. If you're writing, "I hope this finds," yeah, it finds me well. Just get on with it. Just say the thing.
Yeah. Habitually though, I still want to say that.
I finish my emails now with "I hope you're doing well," rather than
Nice.
starting them. Because it gets straight to the point, and then when it finishes off, you're left with a feeling of, oh, he does care. That's the
Yeah.
idea, anyway.
Leave them with a good taste. Good last bite. I like it. Can I ask what catalyzed your first piece of content? Like, what inside of you were like, I'm going to give this a shot?
What catalyzed my first piece of content?
Yeah, what was the point from you going from like 0 to 1 and being like, I'm curious about social media. I think I have something to say. I'm going to just put something out to the world.
I think, when I was a PT, I was a personal trainer at the time, and I was trying to basically put content out online to attract online clients. I was desperate and really needed to make this thing that eventually would fail work. Although you could see it as, if you saw it as all the same story, it ultimately is succeeding now. So maybe it didn't fail, but it definitely did feel like a failure at the time. But I was just like, I just knew that I knew that we have this amazing opportunity to reach like millions of people. Actually, in theory, you don't have to have any followers to reach millions of people. At the end of the day, the way the algorithms work, anyone can post something and affect a huge number of people. So I knew that we had this opportunity to just put out information and try and build credibility basically. And so I started experimenting with just putting running related content out, strength and gym related content and all that sort of stuff. My first videos were just so rubbish. They were, I guess there was no voice behind them. No one really knew the person behind it, that you wouldn't, as a viewer, you wouldn't really gain anything from them. It was just filming my feet as I ran and then filming views and all that sort of stuff. And then eventually I did my first video where I was just sort of talking to camera as I ran, and it did quite well for me at the time. I think I got like 90 likes, and I was like, sick, that's dope. And before I was getting for ages I was getting like 10 likes, 5 likes, 20 likes, for ages, years. And then I remember doing that video and being like, okay, yeah, maybe people sort of like the way I speak to camera. Maybe I'd be more kind of open with actually using my voice and my face. So I just started just diving fully into actually just being on camera and just documenting everything. I know actually you released a podcast recently, a document over create, that concept of just, always documenting everything and letting the creation happen. Like that really became my kind of mantra, I guess, to just make the thing, just film loads, just talk to the camera, pick up your phone, talk to the camera. Don't think about how it's crafted and the composition all that much. If that's stopping you from actually creating, then just do the thing. And like we spoke about before, it just ended up being a daily habit of ship every time I didn't have something going out that day. I was like, I need to just come up with something, and so I'd just pick up the camera and make something. Or then you find your voice. Like I think 4 years ago I had no idea really what this is the super interesting thing I think about where I've come from in terms of what was in my head, and now what has been realized in the form of That's Runnable and the Hub, and I guess the sort of ethos behind this podcast and stuff is 4 years ago, it was all there. Like how I approached my training, how I approached my strength training, what was going on in my head as I did a certain rep of a certain exercise, the mindfulness, the trying to sort of be present and controlling your breath, and everything that I'm trying to kind of apply to my coaching and the materials I'm making now. It was all there. I just hadn't realized what was in my head. And I think through the process of putting out content, of trying to communicate, of trying to get what's in your head and communicate it through, call it whatever you want, but through some creative endeavor, through the art that you create, that communication, that effort, that repetitive effort actually clarifies what you stand for. And what it does is it means that you can actually create what you know, or what you used to know in your head should exist, or what you wanted to exist in the world. And now I'm at a point where it's just so much clearer than it ever has been, and it becomes clearer and clearer the more you produce. And I guarantee that in 10 years time it will evolve into something else, as long as I continue to ship, as long as I continue to actually create. It will craft itself and almost, create itself in a funny way.
Dude, I'm already excited for the shipping of this collaboration we have going. It's like one day I'm sure we'll be sitting in a nice studio or something, or our conversations are going to iterate and iterate as well.
Exactly. And we were chatting before this, and we were sort of, if you're listening now, we kind of have ideas to try and make this a bit more of a repeat episode, and sort of trying to think about ideas about how we can turn it into something that has structure and all that sort of thing. And I think as we do it, we should allow for that to just happen. When you're creating a podcast, you should allow for the format to happen naturally. And the more authentic it is, I fully believe, this is probably one of my most fundamental beliefs in life. I fully believe that authenticity resonates the most. If you can tune in with what is... Man. I don't want to get all Rick Rubin with you. But,
no, go there,
but
please.
if you can tune in genuinely with what is inside, with what is true, and yes, bro. My mate's got that as a coffee table. That's so funny. I love that it's just there as well. You're in Japan and it's just there with you. Yeah, my friend's got that coffee table book for sure. It's the one thing that I think about when I think of Rick Rubin, it is about this expression.
I opened to a random page and I was like, whatever I open to, that is our message.
Oh, I love it.
And it says, if we can tune into the idea of making things and sharing them without being attached to the outcome, the work is more likely to arrive in its truest form. Dude.
What? Yeah. Bruh. Look at that. That's so funny. Turns out it just says the same thing on every page in a different way.
Oh, man. Amazing.
I love that. That's so funny. Serendipity. Yeah. I believe that. And I believe that... I personally believe the reason for that is because we're actually... all of us people are actually not that unique. And no. I used to say this to a friend of mine, that when you're younger, you're told that you're special. It's bullshit. You're not special. And it's the most liberating thing to understand that you're not special.
Special.
I think one of the most damaging things for people is the belief that they're special, because that makes them feel alone. It makes them feel like no one else understands them, that whatever is going on in their head is unique, but it's not. And the beauty of expressing yourself publicly, of creativity in any form, whether it's coach, whether it's putting together a video, helping people improve their running, any sort of expression and true communication, if it's authentic, it has value, because someone else will, if it's authentic enough and communicated in the right way and hits the nail on the head, it will resonate because you're not special.
Yeah, because we all feel the same stuff.
100%, man.
No matter who you are or what you do, we all feel it.
Yeah. And I think that's why your poems do so well. That's why your content does so well, because it's clear that it comes from Josh Lynott. Like, it's clear that it's not come from someone else and been regurgitated. Like, it's unique, man.
Thanks. That's the goal. I'm curious. It's like when you create something that is like initially like true to you, you put it out, but then it does well, and then you like go to create something similar because it does well. It's like trying to balance this like place of always just saying like, or always creating from where you're at and what is true, but then appeasing this audience or playing to the algorithm or whatever it is. It's like, how do you kind of balance that?
Well, recently it sounds weird to say because I feel very privileged to have like the following I have and to have the opportunity I have now. But recently my videos have been not doing as well as they have done in the past. You know, my reach has dropped and I'm getting loads of unfollows and all that stuff. And so I'm looking at the data as naturally as if you're someone who posts on social media, you just will. There's no one who posts and grows an account and then just doesn't care for the data. So, you know, I had this moment a few weeks ago where I was a bit like, why is my engagement so poor? Why is it so low? And I've tried as hard as I can to stay level-headed about it. And I guess my go-to with that is actually to return to what we've just spoken about. It's to return to making content for yourself, essentially. Making content that, like, it get rid of your idea of the formulaic approach of needing a hook and needing an arcing story and a call to action at the end and all this sort of like formula or whatever that you've come accustomed to creating. Don't think about reach. Don't think about making it for other people. Just try and tune into what you're actually trying to communicate. And every time you think about how well it's going to do or whether it's going to do well, just tune back in and sort of, okay, that's not what I'm trying to achieve here. And actually, I think there's something liberating about just putting stuff out, not caring about how well it does, kind of celebrating even when it gets like a couple of likes. Celebrate. Oh yeah, that did shite. Hey, but it was real. It felt real. Because if you really truly believe what we've been speaking about authenticity, if you believe that,
put out what's true.
Yeah, and if you believe it will do well, the byproduct of that authenticity is it should resonate with the right people. And there are bigger and better reasons to be making content than its reach.
100%. And I see that in a physical form on my retreats. I'm just like, okay, I didn't sell as many spots as I wanted, but I always will get these like 5 or 6 people that rock up and I'm just like, you're here because you're meant to be here. And then I have an amazing time on the retreats. I'm like, if I sold more spots, it probably wouldn't have felt like this. So
yeah, and do you're able to connect with those individuals. That's a whole person who's come on your retreat simply because you've been putting out content that resonates, art that actually communicates something.
Same with the podcast. Like, there was one girl that came along. I was like, how did you find out about this retreat? And she's like, Spotify, like, put your podcast in my algorithm. I listened to that, heard about the retreat, and here I am. I'm like, damn.
Isn't that so crazy?
Yeah.
That is just, that sort of stuff is mad. Because I released this podcast recently, and vast majority of people who are listening have probably come because I've told them on social media to go and listen to the podcast. And then I remember a comment on my Spotify saying that they had found it organically through Spotify. And it just occurred to me again. I was like, oh yeah, this is actually another way to communicate to new people.
Yeah. And converting that, it's so fun. Like, the internet trips me out so much. I almost don't think people are real on the other side.
Yeah.
And then it's like one day I'll meet you in person, like, oh yeah, you're a real guy. But it's like you convert them to like this true to life form, and you see them in real life, and you're like, oh wow, okay, like you're not just a listener, you're not just someone hitting a like, it's like you're a person. And that's like, yeah, that just doesn't wear off on me.
Yeah. To consider each number next to like subscribers or followers or listeners or whatever as an actual individual full of complex issues and their own struggles and their own things that they need help with or assistance, or every time there's an additional person, that's an additional person that could potentially be impacted. What a responsibility. Mad.
I know. How many people does Wembley fit?
Is it like, I want to say like
100,000? Oh,
I don't
what's
know.
the biggest one?
Maybe it is 100,000. Yeah, I think Wembley is pretty. Let me Google it. Google it live.
But you got the MCG in Oz, and that's 100,000. And I'm just like,
Wembley is 90,000.
Dude, I think it's just nuts that you've like essentially packed 2 Wembleys full of people.
Isn't that nuts?
Like, you think about every individual person and all their complexities and what they're feeling and training for, and they're like, they all just like tune into what you have to say, and you're like, wow, that's so many people.
Yeah, before the internet as well, like to fill a room, to like stand in front of a room of 50 people and sort of say your thing and be recognized for like your ideas was like an amazing thing, right? And I realized when I quit my job, when I quit my sales job at the end of last year, I was suddenly confronted with this new problem of like creativity. And then I realized that all I've ever actually wanted since I was a kid was to make a living for my ideas, whether visual, I was always a little artist, like I was a painter, drawer, whether visual, or I used to sort of secretly love creative writing, or written, or communicating to camera, whatever it is. It's all been this deep desire to express myself. What a privilege it is to now be able to actually live like this is just creating and making ideas happen, making something from nothing and seeing if it resonates or if people want to kind of keep listening. And so like I mean with that, I genuinely have like this deep and genuine desire to make it resonate in a real way, to make it valuable, to not make it like just some like shit talking on other runners or elitist or whatever other stuff I don't like out there.
I think
like
it's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
I wish more people took that approach. You have such an opportunity to impact and deliver something to so many people, and so many people just pass that up.
Well, yeah, I think the sad reality actually sometimes, especially just on the internet overall, is that quite often the people who have the best ideas, the most valuable ideas, are either too humble or too scared to actually put them out there. Like the people who have affected me most positively have been people close to me who have never made a piece of content in their life. And they never probably would, because they're just like, well, I don't really even like the idea of, self-aggrandizing stuff like that. And then the opposite is true. Those who have the worst ideas, like the macho masculine crew out there, they're the loudest and often the most impactful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting place to play.
Doesn't that make you think that we have, if you think you have good ideas that are good for people, that you have a responsibility to fight the bad with good, you know, to try
Well,
and
that's kind of it, because I said to one of my friends, I'm like, man, it just frustrates me how much crap is out there. And he's like, well, that's your opportunity to like go and do it better. And then it kind of evolves from not just an opportunity but a responsibility. It's like, well, if you think you can go and do better, if you think you have something good to say, like, go and say it.
yeah.
And it's not even an ego thing to like be putting it out. It's like almost more ego to hold on to it and not share it.
Yeah. I think there's a difficult balance to strike. That's something I struggle with a little bit. It's quite easy to come across when you're putting your face on camera, when you're starting a podcast, and you know, you're trying to, or you're starting a newsletter and getting people to sort of listen to your ideas, whatever it is. It's quite difficult to balance, you know, make it, because it's like, it's not about me. I do believe that I'm trying to create something that has value, but how do you balance that kind of, look at me, look at my ideas, these are the best ones. These are the, you know, you don't want to come across like I've got all the answers, right? Because reality is you don't. And actually the process of putting stuff out there is also a process of, you know, failing a lot and putting out ideas that are crap and that actually don't have very much value. Sometimes you fall short and it's not authentic, and, you know, you're actually putting something out to get a response, and you're going to be messing up all the way through. So how do you kind of balance that? Like, even your podcast is named after yourself.
Yeah.
Like, how do you balance that kind of whole presenting yourself, putting ideas out there, but also trying to make it come across the right way, you know?
I think it's this thing of like there's a lot of the internet where it's like they need something human to connect to. So like I've actually loved the last like 4 or 5 months of my social media, because I've kind of just been faceless with a lot of my posts, whereas it's like when I was releasing the poems I was like front and center. But I love that there's just been me being able to write, and it's just like taking the human away from it and just having these ideas. But I still think there needs to be this like this face to it, so people are like, oh yeah, this is a real thing. And that's I guess how I reconcile it, is that for me to be able to, I guess it all comes back to like, what am I trying to optimize for? And it's like, well, how do I land the best connection with people? So to do that, I have to be in front of the camera. And then I guess it goes back to what we were saying before with authenticity. If you actually are just acting from that place, I think it will show. And you just have to come back to that. But then I also look at my social media and people's pages, and it's like, well, it is an online business card. And if someone lands on your profile, what can they tell from immediately looking at you? And this like stuck with me like 8 or 9 years ago. It's like, if you saw a profile and it is just like all on that person, it's just like, well, maybe they are a bit self-absorbed. But if you see other people, if you see nature, if you see like what you choose to present, also I think sends a message. And if people look at it more globally or holistically, they can work that out. But again, also with the internet, is like more and more I realize that people aren't critical thinkers. So I guess I try and make content that makes people think a little bit more. That's always been my goal, is like make someone feel something, or try and make them at least for one thought in your day, like look at something from a different perspective.
I mean, you go on my profile, it's just me. It's me running.
Yeah.
Check me out. Some of it I'm topless. It's like it's the most it's the most self-obsessed kind of page if you look at it like that way. But everything I've always leant back on is like I'm trying to create from an authentic place. I'm trying to provide value in the best way I possibly know how. I'm trying to communicate in the best way I know how. I think that for me, the best way I know how to communicate is orally. It's with my face on it. It's talking to a camera. And I also realize that a lot of people are just not gonna like me. They're not gonna vibe with it. And I think if everyone vibes with what you're doing, it's likely it's inauthentic in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some people that no one has beef with, but if you're not, if at some point you have to let go of the idea of pleasing everyone. At some point you have to just be like,
absolutely,
whatever.
Now I find it fun. Like I'm pretty lucky. Like I haven't had much hate or negative feedback, but when I get it online now, I'm just like, I'll just play with them. I'm just so it's so good.
I haven't had heaps. I had, there was one stage not too long ago where I had a guy, someone messaged me with a screenshot of it, but it was a comment on someone else's post about me. I was like, yeah, thanks for sharing, bro. I wouldn't have seen it otherwise. But it was some guy who doesn't know me whatsoever. It tore me up so much that I even wrote like a newsletter about it. I was like, I need to get this off my chest. But the post itself was about like running influencers, and it was sort of throwing shade at running influencers in some way. And then someone had commented underneath, oh yeah, like that Tommy PT guy, which was almost clearly referring to me, although you got my handle wrong. And he said something like, I happen to know that he's not the sort of guy that he presents himself to be, all this, and went in depth about all of this inside knowledge he has on me. And then it had 13 or 14 likes. His comment and loads of likes. I was like, what the fuck? And I mean, it did affect me, because I was like, it's gone from, it felt like it had gone from throwing shade at my content and what I have to say, which I'm more okay with, to actually trying to sort of have a dig at my character. And I was like, well, then that's kind of crossing a line, because you don't know me. Like, I'm not perfect, and I'm always trying to be a better person, but you do not know who I am, dude. We've never met. I don't know who you are. And it's always some bloke who, like, in his profile picture, it's usually like a dad who's got like a kid on his shoulders. And that just makes me feel so sick. I'm like, you are spending time on social media, probably in front of your kids, writing like hateful comments about someone you don't know whilst your kid plays on their own. It's so sad.
Yeah, I really battle with that side of the internet, in terms of, there was a female journalist that put an article out about a Australian endurance runner, and she just got absolutely torn to shreds. Like, the language was vulgar. It was like actually horrendous. But she posted screenshots of the messages that she was receiving, and like, this was like almost like abusive. It was like abusive language towards this lady. And it was the same thing of, it was coming from men, and they were like standing with their young girl. And it's just like, are you kidding?
It's mad. It's so crazy.
Like, you wouldn't want someone to treat your daughter like that. You wouldn't dare talk to your daughter like that, I would hope. But you can go and rip someone to pieces on the internet.
The most tragic reality is, one thing I've learned from watching comments on the internet that I now sometimes do. Women and girls on social media get it way worse. Like, almost definitely. From what I've seen, if you have if you have a woman in sport, in fitness, doing some exercise in the gym, you will be, if it does well, you know, in any capacity, you just need to go into the comments and you'll see a bombardment of insecure men writing a spectrum of things, either from really hateful, just like stupid content that's just really dumb and hateful and means nothing, to all the way down the spectrum, right to, you know, like, you should be doing this better, or, you know, form adjustments and unsolicited advice and all that. And it's just like, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, ultimately, men just need to shut up.
Man.
A lot of the time. But that's just, yeah, that goes far outside the internet and is another big topic in itself. But we just, again, I think just we need to, as humans, come back to the fundamentals. It's like, learn how to talk to people, learn how to be kind, learn how to just like manage ourselves. And then it's like those same fundamental principles, I think, apply to running, which is what you and I so deeply believe in. It's just like, do the basics well, learn them.
Yeah. You had a podcast recently, 95th podcast, Does Running Have a Gender? Which was an interview with a friend of yours.
Yeah, with Britt de Groot. That was a big podcast. That was to land on for International Women's Day and to talk about the safety of running, and as men, just how much of a privilege that we have, and that it's actually okay for us to, like, having a privilege is not a bad thing, but just recognizing it, and the fact that if I want to go out tonight at 10 p.m. in any part of the world, I can run and feel safe, and I'm probably not going to be like, I'm just not going to feel unsafe, really. It's like, I'll have a head torch, I know I can outrun anybody, nobody's going to bother me, but that's just, and I don't even think about where I'm going to run, what I have to carry, but that's not the case for all women. So that was to sit down with Britt, who's really, she is an incredible lady. She's really involved in the Melbourne running scene, and really fights for to have a voice and to get people thinking, and to get brands actually if they put on a run, it's like, are they including everyone? Are they thinking about it being pace inclusive? Are they thinking about the time that a run club starts, and not just thinking about things because a man organized it? So that was if anybody has an hour or so, I would love for you to listen to that podcast with Britt.
Yeah, we won't try and kind of regurgitate everything from it. Just go and listen. But there was one thing, I think I saw a clip actually from, I think Britt was saying that she just respects it when a running club just says, you know what, this is the pace we will be running. Instead of being like, oh, we're all inclusive and everything, actually just saying it how it is. It's way more helpful to do that than to just pretend you're inclusive.
The way she said that was so good. Something like, it is what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
Okay. Something like that. I was like, and that's just a big thing. It's just like, just own it. This is what you are, this is what you do, and that's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
And that circles all the way back to the start of this podcast and my frustration. It's like, don't operate under the guise of you're doing it for this cause or for this reason. It's like, just, this is who you are, this is what you want, whether it's a material object or for clout or whatever. Just be that. And I
couldn't
think
agree more.
Better off.
Be yourself. Embrace yourself. Yeah. Well, man, it's been a pleasure to chat away about creative things and just sort of let the conversation flow.
One day we'll get into running stuff.
Yeah, we're planning on it at some point. I sort of have this line at the top of my newsletter. It used to be, I don't really know why, but it used to be like, the 40th edition or X edition of your favorite running newsletter, which is a bit of a kind of joke. Now I think I've written something like a edition of a running newsletter that's kind of not about running or something, because it's like most of the time it's not really about running, and I kind of tenuously link it back to running.
Yeah, running is just our vehicle, and that's what I realized with the poetry book. I was like, all of these are loosely about running, but you peel back a few layers and it's none of this is to do with running.
Yeah, it is that I actually was chatting to some others about this on a previous podcast, that running is sort of the vessel through which I can do what I love, that is exploring the outdoors. It is like the creativity of social media, it's writing, it's actually, running's the gift because it's the vessel through which I get to do all of these things. And yeah, I love running, but it's kind of about more than that.
Yeah, and even all the poems that I read, and I'm like, do I actually love running?
Yeah. I was in the car the other day with Lou, and we were both just like, we had a run on the cards later on. We were sort of on a long drive, and I was like, I can't be bothered. I don't know if I want to run anymore. And she just like laughs because my whole identity now is running. I was like, I might just get into mountain biking instead.
I sometimes think about switching, and then for this week, when I've been skiing so much and running so little, and then I go out and run, I'm like, nah, this still rocks.
Yeah, I had exactly the same experience this weekend.
Yeah.
Went out, was in a new area. I was like, I love running. Yeah. No, of course I do. Yeah, what am I talking about?
Yeah, I can't beat it.
Well, we'll be back. We need a name for this sort of edition of That's Runnable. If anyone has any suggestions, I'm trying to think of like a mix between our two names, but that's too.
It's kind of like runnable notes.
Oh, I don't hate that, I don't hate that. But yeah, we'll be back. We'll talk about running, and maybe we'll take on some listener questions as well at the end together.
That'd be epic. Next time we'll have show and tell listener questions, and maybe we'll give you an update on how our running's going when I'm out of my skiing phase.
Nice. All right, man. Good chat.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks for listening. I hope you really enjoyed that conversation with Josh. I certainly did. It was our first attempt at having a bit of a chit chat about whatever we wanted to be honest. There was no real structure. It was just us trying to chat and flow. I hope you enjoyed it, because we are going to be doing this as a recurring episode. Every month or so, we're going to have this episode. Maybe we will call it Runnable Notes, or That's Notable, or something. I don't know. Any suggestions welcome. I'm yet to hear anything better than those two, to be honest. But yeah, that's it. If you are interested in finding out more about Josh, go to joshlynott.com. You can follow him at Josh Lynott on Instagram, and his podcast as well as the Josh Lynott Project, so go check that out. If you're interested in That's Runnable's coaching hub, that is live. It is live and ready to dive into, so go and check that out. The information is below in the description. Much love. Look after yourself. Run the runnable. Keep showing up for yourself. And I'll see you next time.